Hey everybody, so we are going to be looking at some distributive property problems. You can see the worksheet is called Practice with Problem Spots. That just means that there's problems on this page that a lot of students make common mistakes on, so that's what we're going to be looking at. Let's look at problem 1. Think about what a common mistake might be on this problem. Here's what the common mistake was. We'll see if that's what you thought of. This is the common mistake, distributing out the 8x. We cannot do that because the 8x is not touching the parentheses. What's touching the parentheses is this little opposite here, or you could think about it as a -1. So either way that you want to think about it, that's what we're distributing. The 8x that's out in front is just going to drop down, and then we're taking the opposite of everything within the parentheses. So the opposite of 3x is -3x. The opposite of +8 is -8. That's the same thing as multiplying them both by -1. Now that I'm done distributing, I could do my bubbles. So I see that these are going to go together, and this is going to be separate. Go ahead and combine like terms and get a final answer. All right, hopefully you got 5x minus 8. Constants go last, so that 8 has to go at the end. And that's your final answer. See if you could do problem 2, pause the video, and then unpause it when you're ready to check your work. Hopefully you have problem 2 completed. The tricky part would, would be recognizing that you have to distribute out the negative or the opposite instead of the 24. The 24 is just going to drop straight down, and then it's going to be -7x minus 29. So you could highlight, you could do your shapes, whatever you want to do that shows what the like terms are. In this case, -7x has to go in the front because constants have to go last. Then I need to combine +24 with -29, and that gets me -5. So this is going to be my answer here. Let's do a couple of problems. Let's do problem 3 and 4. Try them, pause the video, and then come back when you're ready to check your work. All right, hopefully you're ready to check your work. On problem 3, again, we're distributing out this negative. Just going to drop down the 28y. Need to take the opposite of everything inside the parentheses. -9y, and then instead of -14, it's +14. That's another spot where a lot of students will make common mistakes. So bubbling my like terms. I know my constant's going to go last, so that 14 is going to go at the end of my answer. So I want to combine 28y and -9y. That's 19y. Drop down the 14. 19y plus 14. Problem 4 is going to work the same way. I can see I finally have more than one variable in here though. -32g, now take the opposite, -6g, and -h. All right, so let's see. These guys are like terms, and h is its own thing. I need my final answer to be in alphabetical order. G comes before h in the alphabet. So I have a -32 and a -6. That's going to give me -38g, and then just drop down the -h. And then that is my answer. All right, so the next set of expressions are going to all work the same way. There's just more numbers in them. So let's look at number 5. Go ahead and pause the video, try number 5, come back when you're ready to check. All right, hopefully you're ready to check. So again, we're distributing out this negative that's in the front, dropping down the -32. I have to take the opposite of everything in the parentheses, -25 plus 9r plus 5r. I just dropped it down the 5r. All right, so let's find my like terms. These guys are my constants. Those are going to have to go last. And then I have r terms. The variable needs to go first, so my r terms are going to go at the beginning. 9r plus 5r is 14r. -32 plus -25 is -57. All right, that's my answer. Go ahead and try 6 and 7. Pause the video, and when you're ready to check your answers, come back. All right. I'm going to speed things up here. The answer to number 6 is 7p plus w, and the answer to number 7 is negative 13h minus 68. If you got those correct, you could skip my explanation, but if you missed one of those, go ahead and watch my explanation. On number 6, I'm going to start by distributing out my negative. Drop down the 8w, negative 7w minus p plus 8p. Find my like terms. So I have w's and I have p's. P comes before w in alphabetical order, so my p term is going to have to go first. 7p, and then 8w minus 7w is just 1w, and we write that without the 1, so just plus w. 7, working the same way, except this time I have a negative 2 to distribute instead of just the opposite. So drop down my 92. Now I'm multiplying negative 2 times 3h. I'm going to do negative 2 times 3, which is negative 6, and then h. The next thing that I'm doing is negative 2 times negative 12, and that's positive 24, minus 7h. All right, so let's see. I got constants, and then I have h terms. Constants are going to go last, so I'm going to start with my h terms. Negative 6 and negative 7 give me negative 13h. Negative 92 and positive 24 give me negative 68. All right. On number 8, this parentheses right there, that's a really gross mark. There we go. That looks a little bit better. This parentheses right there might throw some people off with the exponent. But if you notice that 2h and negative 5h are like terms, the problem is going to become a lot easier. Go ahead and give this problem a try. Pause the video. Come back when you're ready to check. All right. Hopefully you are ready to check. So tricky spot would be to notice that there is that step that you could take within that parentheses. The reason we use distributive property is because there's usually nothing we can do inside the parentheses, but we can do 2h minus 5h. These are like terms. So I have 2h and negative 5h. Those are going to combine to be negative 3h. So I'm going to put that back into my problem. 9k minus 3 times negative 3h squared. All right, here's another tricky spot. The next step in order of operations would be exponents, and we can do the exponents here. This is something for us to do. Negative 3h squared means negative 3h times negative 3h. Let's break that down even farther. Negative 3 times h times negative 3 times h. When you're multiplying these, you're going to start by multiplying the coefficients. So negative 3 times negative 3 is 9. Then multiply the variables. H times h is h squared. So when you take apart what just happened, negative 3 squared turns into 9, and h squared turned into h squared. So I'm going to bring that back into my problem. 9k minus 3 times 9h squared. There's still nothing to distribute here. I'm really done with my parentheses, but if you had written them with parentheses, that's also fine. That's just another way of expressing multiplication. The next thing that I'm going to do is multiplication. Negative 3 times 9h squared. I'm going to multiply the negative 3 and the 9. That's negative 27h squared. Just bring down the h squared. And the 9k out in front. This is basically my answer. I just have to get it in alphabetical order. So 9k is one term. and negative 27k is another term. I'm going to write it out to the side, I think, just because I don't have room. Negative 27h squared plus 9k. That last step is just to get them in alphabetical order. That was definitely tricky. All right, so go ahead and finish up 9 through 12. Pause the video, come back when you're ready to check. Okay, hopefully you're ready to check. I'm going to start by going over just the answers, so that way if you got them all right, you don't have to watch my explanations. So I'm going to write them all together. So the answer to number 9 was 5 6p plus 6 7/8. The answer to number 10 is negative 4 1/4 x plus 4. 11 was negative 3 2/3 x plus 2.4, and 12 was 7.9 x squared minus 0.3 x minus 2.7. Anything you got right, you could skip the explanation for, but if you missed a question, please watch the explanation for that question. All right, so 9. The first thing that I need to do is distribute out that little negative. I know I'm writing on top of my previous problem, sorry about that. Drop down my 2 1/8. The opposite of negative 4 3/4 is positive 4 3/4. Opposite of negative 5 6p is positive 5 6p. All right, common like terms, let's get those. I know constants go last, so my 5 6p is going to go out to the front, and then I need to add together 2 1/8 plus 4 3/4. You'll find common denominators there. So 2 1/8 plus, I'm going to do the bigger number on top. Instead of 3/4, I'm going to write 6/8. That is 6 7/8. So plus 6 7/8. That's number 9. All right, number 10. All right, couple things going on here. We have a negative that needs to be distributed, and we have a 1/2 that needs to be distributed. You could do these in any order that you want, or you could even rewrite the problem to put those together. You can multiply the negative times the 1/2 first and make it look like this. It doesn't matter what order you do it in though. I'm just going to choose to do them together so that way I have one less step to do. When I'm multiplying a number by 1/2, it's the same thing as dividing that number by 2. So 1/2 times 10 over 1 just gets me 5. 1/2 times 10 is 5. That's half of 10. But it was really a negative 1/2, so I'm going to write negative 5x. It's going to work the same with the 8. 1/2 times 8 over 1 is 4. 1/2 of 8. I have negative 1/2 times negative 8, so it's going to be positive 4. And then drop down my 3/4 x. My like terms, my x's are going to be like, and then the plus 4 is going to be a constant. Negative 5x and positive 3/4. So I'm going to do 5 minus 3/4 because they're different signs. I'm going to change that to 4 4/4. That's the same as 5. So 1/4 and 4. 5 is bigger, so it's negative 4 1/4 x. Drop down the plus 4. All right. Number 11. Going to distribute out this negative. Drop down the negative 2 2/3 x. Opposite of x is negative x. Opposite of 2.4 is plus 2.4. Let's see. It looks like I have both decimals and fractions to deal with here, but they're actually not like terms. So I'm not going to have to combine the decimal and the fraction at all. So you can convert them to be the same, but you don't have to. With my x terms, I'm going to need to add because they're both negative, and the coefficient on that x is really a negative 1. So I have negative 2 2/3 plus negative 1. That's negative 3 2/3. So negative 3 2/3 x, and then just drop down the 2.4. If you had converted to fractions or decimals, one or the other, that's fine. Doesn't matter. All right, lastly, number 12. I don't like this. This looks confusing. It's hard to see what's going on. It's a double negative. This is saying 8 minus negative, and I'm going to write it as 0.3 so I could see it better, x. That's the same thing as what's inside that parentheses. So I'm going to change that double negative to positives, and I'm going to rewrite that parentheses to look like this. 5.3 minus parentheses 8 plus 0.3x plus 7.9x squared. This looks a little bit more familiar to me. First thing I have to do, distribute that negative. Drop down the 5.3, opposite of 8 is negative 8. Opposite of 0.3x is negative 0.3x. Drop down the 7.9x squared. All right, like terms. 5.3 and negative 8 go together. Oops. Negative 0.3x. That doesn't go with anything. And then my last like term is the x squared term. That also doesn't go with anything. For my order, I need to have my exponents start with my biggest one. So 7.9x squared is going to go first because x squared has a higher exponent than x. Next, I'm going to drop down my x term. Can't combine those because x squared and x are not like terms. Finally, I have one step of math to do with the 5.3 and the negative 8. I have to subtract to get 2.7, and then 8 is bigger, so it's a negative answer. There's everything all together. If you needed to see any final answers one more time, thank you guys for giving me your patience and listening to my video lesson.